Today in Flex in the City, we talk to Florent Albert, the CEO of 𝗱𝗂𝘀 Group in Luxembourg, who encourages other financial services leaders to continuously improve their swing to stay ahead in this fast-changing environment. All that happening right now on Flex in the City. Hello, everybody. This is Rachel Treese for Flex in the City, and I'm delighted to be interviewing the CEO of Luxembourg 𝗱𝗂𝘀 Group, and his name is Florent Albert. Bonjour, Florent. How are you?
Bonjour, Rachel. Very well. How are you?
Very well, thank you very much. The sun is starting to shine. We've just had Easter in Luxembourg, so all is good. So I'd love to know a little bit about you. Tell me, first of all, where were you born? And tell me a little bit about your childhood and what brought you to Luxembourg.
Well, I was born in Provence, in Nîmes, in the south of France. My dad was a pilot in the Navy, so we moved around a little bit, which is why I ended up spending a couple of years in New Caledonia in the South Pacific. And then after all that, we came back to France and settled around the Bordeaux area.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where I spent most of my teenage years, if you will. My dad became an insurance broker, so
Okay.
he left the Navy, and this is really where I studied as well. And then beyond that, my studies took me a little bit elsewhere, of course, to Paris, to Toulouse in France, and even to Leeds in the UK, until I started
To
my
Leeds.
professional journey.
Ah,
Yes.
very good. So you experienced the north of England, Florent.
I did in spring, which felt like winter, really.
For sure.
But it is, I guess, this is what the weather is like there. But it was nonetheless a nice experience.
Very good. And Luxembourg, how did you end up coming from, your studies in Paris to Luxembourg?
Well, I had quite an international career after finishing my studies. I started working in the UK actually, but I was in an international program of a company called General Electric, GE.
Yeah.
And so I spent the first 2 years on 6-month assignments around Europe. Then I joined the corporate audit corporate audit group of GE based in the US, and then I traveled the world, if you will, for another 4 years. And after that, I continued my international career. We can talk a little bit more in detail later on if that's of interest, which meant that overall, I have spent very little time in France. And as part of that expat journey, if you will, I moved to Luxembourg about almost 10 years ago. At the time, the company that I worked for at 𝗱𝗀𝘀 Luxembourg was owned by Blackstone, the private equity group. They had just acquired the business from 𝗱𝗂𝘀.
Right.
In the UK, and we're looking for a leader, a CFO at the time for the European business, and that's how I essentially moved. At the time, I was in Paris actually, and I went to Luxembourg for what was supposed to be a few years, maybe 3 to 4 years, and like many other people in Luxembourg, there you are, 10 years later, I'm still here.
Yeah, I'm 33, so I beat you.
There you go.
Yeah. So I understand you have children, Florent. How old are they, your children?
I have 2 children. My daughter Clémence is 19, and my son Adrien is 16.
Okay, very good. So your children, if you were giving them some counsel or advice on what does it mean to be a leader, what would you articulate to your children about that role of being a leader?
Well, I think it's a great question and not an easy one, actually. I would say, being a leader means 2 things: is having a responsibility that not everyone has, and that can be a little bit heavy, that can be challenging. It comes with some stress and pressure, potentially some hard decisions to make. But it's also, on the other hand, the ability to make a difference, the ability to influence things, the ability to shape, to steer, and to essentially see the fruit of your decisions in a very tangible way. So there's something quite rewarding about being a leader, even though there are also some other aspects of it that are a little less exciting or rewarding.
So one of the things that interests me is, in your career, you've experienced the private equity journey, and you're now experiencing, what it means to go through a merger. Again, if you were giving some counsel to, other leaders out there about these two quite interesting challenges, what would you say about those, your experience of those?
Well, maybe before answering exactly that question, I can tell you why I joined the company 10 years ago. I was coming off 3 or 4 different companies that I had worked in my career, GE being the one that I had worked for the longest, but large, blue chips, organizations, lots of territories, lots of employees, complex decision making, and I wanted to do something a bit different. I wanted to be a bit more in sync with the organization, and I wanted to have a little bit more independence in the way I could get things to move, and I wanted to be able to execute a little bit more freely. And in some of those larger groups, it's not so easy because you figure that you spend a lot of time on convincing others that what you're doing is right than actually acting.
Right.
And then at the same time, I had the opportunity to work with Blackstone, and that was my first time with a private equity. And this was very interesting to experience different sides of ownership, from very institutional ownership of listed groups to, a much more direct line type ownership with Blackstone. And so this was really the driver for me to come work in this company. And I really wasn't disappointed. I was faced with, very complex issues, with a lot of hard decisions to make, with the clear direction that ownership was very critical in everything that I do. So that was very interesting and a growing experience for me, because those large groups sometimes tend to give you a little bit of this safety net feeling that someone else will make a decision at some point. But in an organization like the one we have here, which is not small, it has almost 500 people, but it's not big, right? It's not thousands and thousands or tens of thousands of people. Well, you own your decisions, and that means you have to live with them, and you may have to live with them for years, because we're in an industry which is life insurance industry, where decisions tend to follow you for a long, long time, good ones, but also bad ones. So that was very, very interesting. I also went through, as part of that journey with Blackstone as private equity owner, well, the exit part of it, which is, at some point you decide that it's time to move on, and you decide, it's time for the shareholder to monetize their investment. And so we went through that. It took probably a little bit longer than we were hoping, so that made it a bit more challenging in terms of the dynamic, in terms of the tension, in terms of the process itself. But ultimately, we managed to get it done, and now the new owner is 𝗱𝗂 Group, which is a large insurance group, very active within the space that we're in, which is wealth management / life insurance. And within that context, it's very interesting to now be part of the group, which is bigger. It has about 2,000 employees, and to go through the integration process.
Yeah.
So, we're obviously a large part of that group. So in terms of size, I would say the Utmost Luxembourg is 40%, 45% of the balance sheet, about 25% of the employees. So we matter quite a bit to this organization, but at the same time, we have to make an effort and go through an integration process, because As it's about the culture, it's about processes, it's about decision making, and all this needs to be worked on, and that's what we're going to be doing over the next few months.
Absolutely. It's absolutely the journey of change, isn't it? And managing possibly resistance to change. Just to share a little story with you, we've had to have a break for 𝗱𝗶𝘀𝗃𝗲𝗿 over the last few months. My mum sadly passed away last year, and
Yeah.
wrote books all about change and change in financial services. And then I realized at one point that, we were doing things which were really helpful to my mum, but she was really resisting them. So I guess my question to you along this journey, how are you managing any of the sort of resistance that you're experiencing? Because it is a journey of change, and mergers and acquisitions bring that change, don't they?
Yeah, it's a very interesting time because a process like this one crystallizes a lot of what people are about, a lot of what their core skills are, but also what their limitations are. And I've always considered that change was a very important thing. The ability to manage change, any organization or as an individual, is a very important part of the value add you bring to the table as an employee, as a contributor. And what I ask my team, my leadership team, every week, and when I see them on a regular basis, is to just have that approach. Okay, we are a very good business. We have a lot to bring to the table. But we have to bring it in a way which is seen as something that will add value to the overall group. And we may be different, and being different in some ways is great, because then you showcase differences, but it's showcasing differences with a view of adding value to a greater group, as opposed to showcasing differences as saying, okay, we're better, we're faster, we have better systems, we have better processes, and so on and so forth. That's not good. So I foster a collaborative change, and not everyone can take it.
Yeah.
Not everyone likes it, and so there may be difficult decisions to make as to whether some people, some employees, some colleagues at every level in the organization are in the right positions at that point in the corporate history of Luxembourg.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? The fascinating thing about change, that it's a constant along this journey. So if you were to have a quote out there in the ether, which was something where you were advising, any future leader out there in financial services about that change, what would you love your words to be that are out there?
I came across a really interesting quote not so long ago, and I've used it internally already a little bit, but it's that I do not know. I'm quoting, sort of approximately, so apologies for that, but I cannot give you a recipe for success, but I can give you a recipe for failure. Try to please everybody. Okay. And so it's quite a powerful one, I think, and this was from some actor, I believe. But I love it because we're in a society, and especially in a corporate environment, where norms matter, right? You have to blend, you have to shape yourself with how the organization thinks, and with who the key players are, and so on and so forth. And that's of course very important to be able to understand that, because it shows that people have a certain intellectual capability to understand the various levers of decision making in the firm, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, you can't be everything to everyone. And at some point, you have to put a stick in the sand and say, this is what I think. This is what I believe in. This is what I want to do. This is what I advocate for. And I want my leaders in my organization to do that. I want them to own it and And that's just harder to do in a period such as the one we're in right now, of course, because you just had many stakeholders in the decision-making jigsaw. But I think this is a very important thing, and I try to apply this myself, and I try to, as much as I can, when I have a particular point that I want to bring, and I know this may not be the majority, I know this may be a little bit disruptive, I have no issue bringing it up. And I think it's important, and you will not please everyone, but it's fine. It's fine. I think the other thing, as you become a more senior leader, it's, I guess, when you become a bit of a senior politician, you know that no matter what you do, a number of people will be unhappy. A number of people will criticize this. So you have to be able to internalize that ongoing frustration that whatever you do, someone will be unhappy. Someone will think that you have underperformed, or that you have made the wrong decision, or that you have the wrong lens or perspective on a particular issue. But you have to be comfortable as a leader that, you know, you hold your ground, you believe in what you do, and you've been around long enough listening to others, but also using your own experience to be making a decision which, you know, on balance is the best one, or at least the one you believe in.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I think this is really important wisdom for future leaders, if I'm honest. I'd just love to touch back on, you talked about differences, which I think is really important, and I'm really passionate about diversity of thinking. Again, what is your own view about making sure that there's diversity of thinking in a system? I'd love you to maybe articulate your own thoughts a bit more on that.
Yes, I mean, it's a really interesting topic at a time when, you know, DE&I is under fire with the Trump administration being very active, sort of promoting some of those concepts being ditched, and I think it's a very dangerous trend, and it's one that has to be fought forcefully. I am fortunate in a way at two levels. One is that I work in financial services, and typically in financial services, gender balance in terms of pure number of population percentage is reasonably more balanced than in many other sectors of the economy, in the industrial sector in particular, certain areas. So, and we're lucky because in Luxembourg, in general, the salary difference between genders is very limited compared to what is elsewhere in Europe. At Lombard, sorry, at Utmost Luxembourg, you know, we've been promoting, of course, gender equality, but also you know, worked to narrow the gap in terms of salary between women and men. It's today at less than 2%, so I'm very comfortable. I mean, I've dedicated some specific budget to work on that. That's true, of course, that at every level of the organization is to be managed as well. So I had until recently about 40 to 45% of my ExCo, executive committee, being made up of you know, female employees, which was very good, I think, on average. It's a constant attention to detail that you need to have. As we all know, it's a constant fight to make sure that everyone gets the right opportunities. We're quite careful with that. I would say the maturity in my business is probably higher than it is than I've seen it elsewhere. But it's times are changing a little bit as well. Recently, at least, they were changing in the right direction, and I think we should be very mindful that we don't go backwards. There's a risk of that today, and that's something I'm going to fight a lot, because I just don't think it's right.
Great stuff. So a couple of last questions. If you had a magic wand and there's something that you could change in the whole of the financial services industry globally, what would be that thing that you'd love to change overnight to make it better?
Well, it's a very philosophical question to a degree. The answer that comes to mind when you ask me that question is a little bit what we were working on when I was working at MetLife, which is the biggest US insurer. And I was working for the company in a while, but a while ago. They had a program which was meant to promote microfinancing. So I think that the financial services industry is extremely well organized in general, is extremely diversified, and is highly, highly regulated. So I would say if you ask the question you just asked to 90% of the leaders, they would probably tell you, I would like less regulation, or I would like, less compliance, so that kind of stuff. But I'm not doing that. I would like to see microfinance, the ability of the financial services strength to reach out to the poorest and to support growth and development in a much more forceful way, using the incredible means at their power in terms of raising funds, in terms of driving efficiency and knowledge, numerical knowledge in the population and education. I think there's a lot that the financial services industry can do. I'd like them to focus a little bit more. If I had that magic wand, I would just focus on some of those geographies in Africa and South America and Central America, and even in the Middle East or Asia, areas where there are dire need for development, and it comes through better access to finance.
Absolutely. Thank you, Florent. So when you're not being a fantastic dad or working in financial services, is there a hobby that you like to do or explore?
I like to play golf. That's not very exciting, I would say.
Well, my husband would say it is.
in general, I like to spend time with my partner because she's amazing, and when I can, time with my kids. I think those are the simple things that really matter at the end of the day.
Who's the greatest golfer that you've ever seen?
Who's the greatest? You mean? I've never gone to a tournament, so I couldn't tell you. But of course, Tiger Woods for me is the greatest golfer in terms of
Tiger Woods.
pure,
So if Tiger Woods
capabilities.
If Tiger Woods had a message for the financial services industry, what would Tiger Woods' message be?
All in one.
Something like that, isn't it, Florent?
Yeah,
I think.
it was improve your swing and just improve your swing and buy better clubs. I don't know what it would say. But yeah, I like golf. It's good and it relaxes me. It's important. I have never used golf as a social thing, i.e., networking and sort of. I only do golf to not think about work and not work and not interact with professionals. Okay, so it's really a time when it's time for myself. It's a time for just friends or people who I do not work with. It's that time. To me, that's quite important in general, because you need those moments when you're with yourself in a non-professional environment to be able to then perform when you get back to this professional environment. To me, that's important. Some people are very happy, and they're very happy that they do not fully disconnect. For them, the fuel is that ongoing minimum level of interactions that they feel is necessary for them to stay on top of things and feeling that they're they perform. For me, it's not that. I'm very happy to disconnect and then to reconnect.
Very good. Florent Albert, thank you so much for being with us today on Flex and the City. It's been an absolute joy. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
À très bientôt, j'espère.
Merci.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Flex in the City. We hope that you found inspiration and valuable nuggets of wisdom to elevate your leadership journey. Don't miss out, subscribe on your favourite platform, and if you enjoyed the episode, please do leave us a review. Your feedback really matters. Thank you.